Welcome to the Voodoo Power Podcast. Welcome to Plates and Pancakes. We're sitting down today with Adam Lane. Coach Lane is the Director of Strength and Sports Performance for Decatur Central High School. Lane was the NHSSCA Region 7 Coach of the Year in 2021 and also served as the Indiana State Director. Prior to Decatur Central, Coach Lane was the Director of Strength and Conditioning, Sports Performance at Lawrence Central High School, Strength and Conditioning Coordinator for Broad Ripple Magnet School, and the Assistant Strength and Conditioning Coach at Washington Township Board of Education. Lane has a Bachelor's of Applied Science in Kinesiology and Exercise Science from the University of Indiana, where he also played football. Lane has 18 years of experience and carries multiple certifications. He is Level 1 USA Track and Field Certified, USAW Level 1 and Level 2, Functional Movement Specialist. He's a Certified Strength Conditioning Specialist and a High School Strength Conditioning Specialist. In addition, Lane has an RSCC with a distinction and RPR Level 1 and Level 2. Welcome to the show, Coach.
I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm excited about it. And obviously a big fan of you, big fan of your podcast and all the great people you have on here in our profession. And so it's a big honor to be asked to be on here, man. Thanks so much, Steve.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy like everybody else, and with football season rolling, it's definitely harder to get something scheduled. So waking up early on a Sunday morning to get this done is really appreciated.
No problem at all, man.
Listening to some of your stuff that you had out there, talking to friends, talking to you. You grew up as a farm kid, so I was interested in what kind of farm you grew up on.
Oh, man. Well, when I was born, I guess you say, we still had hogs and cattle in the family and grain, of course, multiple things of grain. But as I got a little bit older, got rid of the hogs, got rid of the cows, and we just kind of came into grain. So by the time I was big enough to kind of help around the farm, it was mostly just a grain farm, soybean, sweet corn, wheat, of course. So, but I had three farms in my family. My father's side, my mother's side, and my uncle, who married into my mother's side, married my aunt. He had a big farm as well. So obviously when he married the family, my brothers and I obviously helped out that farm as well. So just a good life, man. I really enjoyed my life growing up. They taught me a lot of great core values, just work ethic, the importance of a dollar bill, and the importance of family. You know what I'm saying? So I learned a lot from that, and I try to use some of that with my kids presently in my school, my program. Even throughout my entire career, I try to educate my kids where I come from and why I do what I do. And I think they buy into that. They appreciate that. You know, I'm all about working hard just to gain a big time result. At the same time, working hard together as one family. That's a big thing I try to sell my kids on hard, is that at the end of the day, like, if you don't have love in your life and you don't have some family there to back you up when times get tough, then what are we all doing this for? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, the farm life definitely guided my path. My mom was an educator. My dad was a truck driver, and then we farmed obviously in the evenings and the night. So, and I was definitely one of the farm boys that I didn't think twice about it. But looking back now, like, man, I wish I had to sleep in on Saturday mornings. But, you know, after playing football on Friday night, I was up early on the farm. Then I drive in, do film with the football guys, the coaches, and the team. And then after I got done with that, then went back up the farm. So that was just natural to me. I didn't think, I was tired or anything. That was what I was told to do, and I did it. And like I said, it's definitely paved my path where I am now as a strength conditioning coach and what I kind of do with my kids. So.
Now, did you grow up in Indiana?
I did, yes. Southern Indiana, Vincennes, which is in between Terre Haute and Evansville, kind of a small little town, maybe 20,000 people, something like that. So we lived in the city because my mother taught for the Inner City School Corporation. And in her words, education was probably a little bit better in the city than it was the country schools. At that time, I think the country kids still got, which a lot of my friends, you know, when it was harvesting time, they got out of school. They didn't have to go to school that day, you know what I'm saying? So I think times changed a little bit nowadays, but so my mom felt like that was the best opportunity for me and for me and my brothers. So we loved it, man. Like I said, we lived in the city, around the farm all the time, 24/7, it seemed like. So, but yeah, it was nice growing up for the big, small town, but I'm glad I'm living in the big city now. I'm glad I'm not living the farm life. It's tough. I'm not gonna lie. I can see as an adult now, the struggles my parents went through, the struggle my grandparents went through, how big harvest season really was, financially for the family, so.
Now from there, you moved into strongman. What pushed you into the strongman events?
Oh man. Um, so my high school strength conditioning coach, who wasn't really, I call him my high school strength conditioning coach, but he was my first like mentor. He was a professional powerlifter. The time in the mid '90s, he was like top three in a bench press or whatever. I think he was like benching like maybe man 630, 640, whatever. He weighed up 192. I think weight class he was in. It was a Glenn Power BB Klein. He writes for Elite Fitness all the time. And so he coached me. He was my freshman football coach, and he was just an amazing motivator. Just he didn't really know much about football, man. It was just like he was just following the basic what the varsity coach wanted. But he just wanted to challenge us, man. He's made up drills every day for us just to compete and push each other and bond together. And we weren't really that good, but man, we definitely shocked a lot of teams just from like how hard we come out and hit and play and mean and just being aggressive. And that's what I loved about it. So once I got to my sophomore year, like I asked him, he would have some guys start coming over training. And I asked him, hey, can I come over and train with you? And he lived about an hour away from Vincennes. And he's like, yeah, come head over, whatever. I started training with him. And after one training session, I was like, I I love this stuff, man. This is awesome. It was just addicting. And he was running West Side. He was running Louis stuff. He knew Louis real well. And so I just bought into it. Well, long story short, um, he did a little strongman stuff. Just we do some stuff down the gym, and then we'd go outside in the garage or in his back alley and just push trucks and throw rocks around and pick up kegs. And he had a steel log, like a just an amateur style steel log we played around with. And I wasn't really the strongest or that good down in the dungeon. When we got out in the yard and stuff, I was just excelling with it. And he was like, Lane, man, you're killing the strongman stuff. And it just came easy to me. I don't know what it was. And I think now it's just because I was a really good athlete. I wasn't really good in the weight room. You know, I was good at power cleans and snatches and stuff like that. But my bench was always crap. And my squat was okay. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't really that great at it. But if it was an athletic base, I was really good. So I started doing that, and I was like, man, I love this stuff. Well, I got into college, like college football, got done with that, and I just needed something. And I randomly went to this gym, was training one day within Broadable. It's kind of like a Rocky Balboa gym, no air conditioning, just garages, hot, burning sweat. And there were some guys doing strongman in the corner, and I just went over and asked, hey, man, like, did you guys train this or whatever? Or you guys compete in this or whatever? And they said, yeah. And I asked them if I could start training with them, so I started doing that, and then that's when it just took off. And then I just became addicted to that. And that was honestly, I probably would have been a strongman longer in my career. I probably been more years than my professional with that. But I played college football. I would have quit football like that if I would have known I would have loved strongman as much as I did and been as successful as I was with it. So it was just I don't know. I was tired of playing team sports. I wanted to be individual. What could I do as an individual with my work ethic and my dedication to myself and my high level competitive atmosphere I had for myself and ability, like what I do. And then I was able to turn pro and became a top 3 in America. And then I competing in Norway for worlds. And then I'm being the highest ranking American, finishing in finals 7th in 2015. So yeah, I had a pretty decent run at it, and I still love it, and I still watch it. And I try to implement some of that stuff with my kids nowadays sometimes too as well, you know?
We met in Texas and talked a little bit. Standing next to you, you're a big guy, but you're not a huge guy. I don't think of strongman when I see you. So to do that at the size you were, how did the weight classes work out that benefited you?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when I competed, I'm in the 105 kilogram class. So that's the 231.5 below class. So there's only 2 pro classes really worldwide. There's the 105, and then there's the heavyweights. So you see all the heavyweights on TV, Thor, Brian Shaw, those guys and stuff like that. So I've been to many contests where those guys are in the heavyweight division, and then I'm in the lightweight division, pro class. So I'm definitely not their stature, but if you put me against all the other 105s, I'm like a giant. Like a lot of those guys are like college wrestlers, like Nick Handy right now, who's one of the top 105, was the top 105 guy the past couple of years, but now he's been bulking up to be a heavyweight. He's actually competed in World Strongest Man this past year. Nick was man, he's just a little bit shorter. He was a college wrestler. A lot of the guys were just wrestlers. They weren't football guys. So he was a little bit shorter than me. And I remember he got maybe fifth. I think I got when I got third at America's Strongest Man. And yeah, so I tower over, to be honest, all the 105 guys. It's just the big guys. Yeah, they're monsters. I mean, they're just different dudes. I mean, my training partner, who was a heavyweight pro, Derek Devon, um, he's like 6'7", 345 pounds. He was a monster. You know what I'm saying? So, but a funny thing is, in my life, I always try to surround myself with like bigger dudes because I wanted to compete, push myself to do their weights. Could I do their weights? No, not really. But I definitely made bigger jumps and was able to get myself to a higher level because I trained with guys with heavier weights. It just challenged me. Um, so I kind of work that way in a little bit with my kids sometimes as well, with my girls and guys and stuff. I try to make those partners of certain people just to see what the jumps I can get with them. And it works out pretty good. But yeah, that's kind of been my thing. Yeah, I'm not that big of a guy. And if you talk to any of the other Indian strong or any of the strength coaches, like Coach Lane's skinny now, man. He used to be very thick and big dude. Like, yeah, man, when COVID hit, I decided to retire with it. Yeah. So decided to move on in my life a little bit.
It's amazing what we find to do to keep ourselves going in the sports we love. I mean, I'm not great at powerlifting, but that's originally why I got into it, was something to keep me in the gym, keep me active, and not just melt away on the couch.
Yeah, 100%, man. I was in my young 20s after college football, and I still love training. I just need something to keep pushing me. And strongman just kind of fell in my lap, and I'm so glad it did. It definitely gave me I put a lot of energy into it. But now I'd say all that energy in strongman is now into my kids and sports performance and my life and my wife and all that stuff. So, which I'm glad that's passed, and I've got new chapters ahead of me, So,
Yeah, the evolution continues. So,
yeah, of course. Yeah, always.
in talking about that, you've moved heavily into velocity based style training in the weight room.
Yes.
So, are you using Louis' old Russian chart, or are you using Brian Mann's chart? I know, looking at them both, Brian Mann has kind of an added section at the top that Louis doesn't have. So I guess to put us on the same page, which velocity chart are you kind of looking at?
I'm looking more toward Brian Mann's. Most of my research is really into his and Will Fleming's research and stuff. And then even a little bit with my own of how I make certain adjustments on height adjustment fluctuations and stuff like that with kids, and how I kind of make those adjustments. So I think Brian Mann's is the base for me for the research I've done. And even with Dr. Pat Ivy from his research stuff as well, that it's the simplest to teach with the kids and it's easiest to follow and stuff like that. So um, when I'm teaching, like and how I view VBT, some people, I know Brian Mann talks about a lot of his articles and books that, it's for the advanced athlete. And that is 100% true. I don't disagree with that at all. I just do think VBT, from the way I view it now, the way I use it, it's more of a educational tool. You know what I'm saying? I'm able to teach the traits and then the qualities that come from those traits and break that down. And how I've broken those down in education for my kids is so much more a game changer when it comes to motivating why you're in the class. I made this term, we're training, we're not lifting weights. And that's not a disrespect to someone that just lifts weights. I'm saying, like, I can dive deeper in educating my kids on why they're doing these reps and what the ultimate goal of these reps are. And then the VBT can kind of set up that auto regulation of the fatigue standpoint if we need it, or if they are having a good day, they're allowed to challenge themselves because the numbers are backing up the justification of the weight increment increase or weight increment decrease. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I love about the VBT device. That's, I don't just use it for freshman kids. I do have a developmental program where I go through every different level of how I break down, like my freshman, sophomore, novice kids, my junior, seniors, or my sophomore, my advanced sophomore, junior kids, stuff like that. And like an easy example I give you is like the great thing is I use Elite Form. In my mind, Elite Form is a Cadillac of strength conditioning or a Cadillac of VBT. But I've only used that in pushband. I know pushband never doesn't exist anymore. So I can't say I can't speak on any other devices because I've only used Elite Form. But Elite Form has tempo training in there, so I can set up eccentric, iso, concentric tempos for my kids in the system. So it's not that like they're using VBT; they're just in the Elite Form system because I feel very strongly that dude, all my freshmen need a lot of tempo training, a lot of eccentric training, learn a lot of isometric training early on, just from that coordination standpoint for them to learn how to control everything. They control it, not the way control them. That's what I always tell them all the time. So I use that tool literally all the way first semester for my freshmen. Like, they're in elite form, but they're not really using DBT. Some coaches are like, oh, why are you using that? Well, I'm not really using it yet. It's just like, there's another tool they provide that benefits the kids on their training. So I want my kids first semester freshmen, or even through a sophomore first time in my class, you're staying on this for a full semester. Like, you're going to learn to control the weight, do it perfectly, perfect technique before I even worry about, a speed we're trying to get from a concentration. So after that semester, we look at where their baseline is, meaning like what their relative strength is, like on squat. If I have male athletes who are a 1-2 or 1-3 from a front squat, well, they're going to keep front squatting, but I now know, hey, they're strong enough where we want them at their relative strength, to where now I'm going to start teaching them some more concentric speed aspects for that. What are those qualities we're trying to train? What's the number, the velocity ranges we're looking for? So what I like to keep a lot of my kids is in that accelerated strength phase, that 0.5 to 0.75 in accelerated strength. But what I'm trying to tell you is, like, taller athletes, you know what I'm saying? Let's say it's their first week of a cycle, I don't want them right at 0.5. If we're going to do a 3 rotation cycle, I want them more towards maybe like that 0.7, the taller athletes, let's say a 6'2", whatever. They should be in the higher end due to workload. So in our shoulder athletes, they might be more closer to the 0.6 range. You know what I'm saying? So within a 3 rotation cycle, we want to increase by 5 pounds or 3% or 4% every rotation, but we'll stay in that zone, but we'll work down the zone. So by the end of that cycle, maybe the taller athletes are right around that 0.6 to maybe 0.56 area, somewhere there. And then most of our shorter athletes, they might be closer right around that 0.5 area. So that's why I like to keep a lot of my kids, especially in our GPP phases or off season, in that 0.5 to 0.75. And some people are, well, you're not getting strong enough in the 0.75. Yeah, I get that. I don't want my shorter athletes there. I want them in the mid range, but obviously there is some fluctuation in the height there, especially in my case, the situation at a high school, because I'm not in the college standpoint where you might have 25 DBs and I'm only doing the DBs and they're all about the same height. That's pretty easy, right? I have volleyball girls, basketball guys, cheerleaders are, 4'7", all these different height level athletes. So you got to have that adjustment set for them, and they've got to understand what their zone is compared to their partner's zone and stuff like that. So yeah, I do believe strongly that BBT is a great tool, educational tool to implement into the high school adolescent program, because you are educating on what the qualities you're trying to train for them. It's not, okay, we're doing 365 on squat and do 5 reps. Well, what are we getting? Okay, we're building strength, but if the kid's very bad technique, are we building strength, or are we putting himself in a red zone where we're getting him hurt? You know what I'm saying? So that's where I feel like the data backs up what we're trying to do, or the numbers back up that we're getting feedback from the VBT, backs up the justification of the weight that's on the bar, or the weight we're going to add to the bar, or the weight we're going to take off the bar. So
You touched on it in there about the strength in the velocities that you're talking about. And then you do bring them down slowly to get to a slower velocity.
yeah,
How slow will you let a lift get for some of those kids? Will you get down into where they're grinding it out, or do you have a cutoff point? Like if you drop below 0.5, you're done.
I do have a cutoff point. It's like, say bench press, I cut it off at 0.25 from all my athletes, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to like red flag the kid. Oh, you grinded it out. You got it. I'm not going to count it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just want them to be safe. But are they pushing the bar evenly all the way up? Or is it one of those, push the strongest arm pushes forward and then they got to lean to the left? Yeah, okay, then I'm not going to count that. To me, that's unsafe. We don't want that. But if they're pushing it up, it's moving parallel. It's a good lift and it's slightly below. I get some guys are like, they'll get like, let's say 0.24. Like, Coach, man, I was 0.24. Come on, got to give it to me. I'm like, yeah, you can have it, man. It was a good lift. You know what I'm saying? You're one off, not a big deal. I just want them to stay. I just set numbers for safe zones where I don't want a kid doing something that their technique goes out the door and they're just trying to lift it any way possible. I'm trying to get rid of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to call it old school mentality, but it's just like, it's not, I want my kids to understand we're a training for performance on the field of competition. We're not a weightlifting class. I have nothing against powerlifting, but I don't want to start a powerlifting team. That's not my vibe. That's not what I want. I want to see wins on the field of competition, but that's what I love. You know what I'm saying? I love competition through football and basketball. That's what I was good at. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't great at the powerlifting. That's not what I'm motivated in. That's what I feel like my kids are not motivated in. My kids love football, track, basketball, all this stuff. So that's where my performance comes from, is pushing them through that. But to get back, like, if it's a good lift, it's underneath 0.25. Yes, I count it. Do I put in the books? Yes, I do. But what I don't do is I don't put that number in elite form as their max number. I put the previous number that they hit as a green light into the elite form for their percentages when I put percentages in for their weights and stuff like that. So it's kind of like the, Windler's program of dropping 20% off their max or whatever, so they hit their reps. That's what I do. I put in the weight that they hit the green light on. So I don't like discourage a red. I just say, hey, great lift, but we're going to use this one as your max. And we'll keep this one here as your max. You did it, but we'll put this other one in the elite form so we know you're still able to hit the green lights in your normal training.
This is something I'm kind of tinkering with, and I'll get your opinion on it, but it seems like maybe the closer I get my dynamic day down to the 0.6, a little bit slower than what you might think, the form really seems to come together, because you have to be locked in or you're just not going to hit those for that speed. Is that something you notice, or do you stay up on the higher end?
I stay on the higher end. I'm going to lie. Like, when I look at 0.6, yes, it is still, obviously, it's acceleration. Okay. It's probably more closer probably to rate force development too as well. I like the higher end for my kids, due to the fact that it just depends. Like, am I going to get high power clean power output numbers on my power cleans doing 1.9 to 2.1? That's why I like to do my speed strength power cleans. I'm going to get great power output there. I'm getting guys over 2,000 over, like my offensive linemen, D linemen, those guys are over like 1,900, 2,000, 2,100. Then my skill guys are right around like 17, 18, 19. Would I get bigger numbers if I went down to Paul Comfort, talks about 1.65? Probably. I probably would get bigger numbers. You're right. But I like the speed for them. I'm not that I'm trying to with them to struggle, because I do heavy power cleans on their clean day, their max effort day. But when I do their dynamic effort day, I'm trying to move as fast as possible. Like, if we're doing squats, we're trying to go 1.0 meters per second. We're trying to speed strength. If I'm trying to do bench, it's 0.9. That's what we're going for. I'm not going to go for a little bit lower weight or lower speed, because I push that towards that max effort, or even like 0.6. And maybe if I'm doing hypertrophy, you know what I'm saying, the off season for guys, stuff like that. So I'm not saying you're wrong. What you're doing is probably correct. It's not the way I'm looking at it though for my kids. When I think dynamic effort, I think lightweight, fast speeds. We're moving as fast as possible, as dynamic as possible. I want everything to look athletic and twitchy. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm looking for my kids.
And I totally agree with that. I've spent a lot of time there, a lot of time pushing that speed. This is just something I started tinkering around with, and I'm noticing some change. Now, will that develop into something I want? Maybe not. I might be back to the 0.9 here before long.
Yeah, you're doing 0.6 at, what did you say, deadlift it was?
Usually I've moved it into the box squat.
Box squat, yes. Okay, yeah. Okay. Are you able to track anything power output wise with it?
I'm a little bit in the Stone Age. I'm not going to lie to you. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
When you and Adam and some of them other guys get talking about watts and stuff like that, I'm a little bit behind the curve on that, but I get where you're going with it. But I've noticed that my form has gotten better. Okay. Everything you have to lock in so much more, and that's kind of where I'm looking at it. Yes, the speed is slower than what you typically would think for your dynamic, but I'm noticing the guys aren't getting through it so fast that they didn't get something out of it.
I got you. Yeah, I get you. Yeah. And you can do that. You have to notice. You got a coach's eye, and you're noticing that they needed a little bit more weight on there and that lower speed to really lock in and get some out. I get that. I do the same thing with some of my guys where they're just moving the bar almost to a squat jump. And I'm like, dude, we got to load some more weight. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want them jumping from a squat jump unless we're doing a squat jump. You know what I'm saying? I want them to be able to accelerate so fast that they come up kind of a little bit on their heel comes off a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want them to have to jump off the ground. Yeah, I've done that a lot with my skill guys sometimes, and because they'll want to chase the speed, and that's fine. We chase the speed. That's what we want. But also we need a little bit more outcome just from power output. But so they need a little bit more weight. So and I'm not adding drastic weights, but enough to where we're getting that true acceleration coming out from it.
So we're off schedule here, so I'm going to keep going off schedule from the notes I sent you. But this gets really interesting. So now that we're talking about this, so since I've done this and I've moved it up just a little bit heavier, not crazy heavier, but a little bit heavier, it seems like the weak points show more. So, for example, last night I had a female athlete doing a box squat, fairly low box squat, safety squat bar, kind of looking at what her number is. Well, then in moving that up or moving it down to that 0.6, 0.65 range, I could see that she had a little bit of hitch, 6 inches off the box.
Yeah.
She hit a little sticking point and then she blew through it and everything was fast. In my mind, by slowing it down where I could see that, now I know in her acceleration phase, her first step might be pretty good, but that second or third step, if I'm relating it to the box squat, might need some work. So if I could stay at that slower speed for a little bit longer and help her blow through that sticking point, it might actually help her speed because the acceleration phase may get better. Is that something you've ever looked at or thought about?
Not in super detail, to be honest, man. What I notice when I do dynamic effort, some of my athletes will go full depth, whatever their full range of motion, I'd say in full depth, sorry, whatever their natural full range of motion is, right? And I really don't teach it. I just say, hey, I just want to be accelerate. Just accelerate down, re-accelerate up. Just do what you can do as fast as possible down, as fast as possible up. Be accelerate, right? I don't really change it till where I start seeing kids where they are super slow in their normal range of motion out of the hole. Or let's say what I'll try to do is then I'll try to get them back on a max effort day where they got to do a pause. And I may lighten the weight for them and go around that 0.6 range, like you said there, but we'll do more of a lighter weight max effort day where maybe they're probably hitting like 60, 68% somewhere in there. And they have to pause, stop for probably 2 seconds and then accelerate out of the hole. And they have to hit that 0.6, between that 0.5 to 0.65 range is where I like to have for most of my kids on that. And that's what I'll start working there. But I don't go in super depth about that. I just look at it like, hey, man, if we're getting stuck, you're right. That's a weakness. We got to work that. We got to learn to accelerate out that. So how we're going to fix that? A lot of the issues I fixed it with is isometrics in that hole. Like get stuck, hold there, hold the tension, and learn to drive out it. And to be honest, one of my biggest issues I see with kids when they get stuck is they just don't know how to use their feet correctly sometimes too. You ever notice that? Like they think about squatting down instead of controlling through their feet and then using their hips that way. And that's one of the biggest issues I have concern with my kids. So that's what I teach that on the side as well, is learn how to root their foot, learn how to control their foot through the ground. And a lot of that can fix some of the issues. And that's how I put kids' coordinations as well. So, but that's the only thing I really look at when it comes to like getting stuck, I guess, in a hole or any position is I start with I may make some adjustments from the weight wise and speed wise, and they do some isometrics, but also I talk a lot about their feet and they're learning how to use their feet and ground and their hips.
That's something I've been working with a lot too. I agree with you 100%. Their feet, their toes get up, they get back on their heel, they roll out to the outside, they get away from that big toe. I found that the heavier weights for me in some instances can help teach that, but then the jumps help teach that as well. Yeah. But when they get that portion of it, it seems like their rate of force development gets better because they're not leaking now. They're rooted into the ground and they have a place to push as opposed to letting things leak out the side and push wherever they can. Is that something you notice as you fix their feet, their rate of force development gets better?
Oh, 100%. Well, the funny thing is just do altitude drops at a low, just start, I throw beginner kids off the boxes and they start seeing them. And it showed me where the leakage is because they don't know how to use their feet that way. They don't know how to land correct with their feet, right? So that just goes back and justifies why I do so much eccentric or isometric tempos with them and learning to root the ground with their feet at such a young age. And even with my middle school kids, I do the same thing. Like the middle school, I that's all I do is tempo stuff for them. I mean, I just burn that in their mind because they're at the age that's what they need to learn how to control themselves. And that's the part of where our athletes get out of control and maybe get injured is because they lose control of themselves in some type of situation. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's why I think that's great about altitude drops about any kid is you're getting them comfortable in that drop, but also learning when they land, they should be learning to use their feet to root right then and there so they don't lose the leakage like we just talked about. So I feel like when my kids start mastering the altitude drop, the young ones, like the freshmen, like my seniors in junior, they're fine. Sophomore, they get used to it. But like those, those lower level biological immature athletes, it's just they just don't know how to control their body weight because they're not strong enough yet. They're weak, basically. You know that. So they've learned how to use their feet. It's like they immediately got strong, like overnight. It's crazy, you know what I'm saying? And it's like they see it too, and they feel it. And that's why I'm big on barefoot training too, as well. In my class, is all my kids will be just barefoot. I mean, with socks on, but I want them to learn to root their feet in the ground and use their toes, use their ball for use their heel, everything. Because when I feel like when they learn how to use their foot correctly, now they know how to utilize their shoe correctly. You know what I'm saying? So when I go get them on the turf or the basketball court, we're doing change direction or agility drills and stuff like that, and I start using those same cues we're using the weight room with our feet, but the angles, spread the foot, everything break. Now they learn how to use that ground. Now they learn how to automatically transfer that force wherever that vector they're going in. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's a big deal to me as well. Yeah, about trying to catch leakage issues. Well, a lot of the leakage is just they don't know how to use their feet. So at least from my standpoint, I see it.
And as I've added more altitude drops in, I'm not seeing this big neurological advancement that I've read so much about. I'm not saying athletes aren't getting it. For me, I haven't seen it. But what I have seen is exactly what you said. You can identify weak spots very quickly. You can see how they're landing. A lot of them will land where their feet aren't square. They're off. They'll have a hip shift. And that's why we did so much box jumping in the beginning was it will immediately show you where they're going to be weak in the squat rack. It's going to immediately show you where they're leaking at. Well, now you can do that with no weight on their back. You can start fixing those spots to make them accept more forces on the force, whether or on the field, whether that be sprinting or whatever the case may be. So
yeah.
Yes, that you hit on that is definitely something I've been working through quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely, man.
So I listened to a podcast you were on, and it was a unique podcast, and I enjoyed listening to it. And I can't remember the name of it. Caffeinated Coaches, I believe.
Yeah. Scotty, man, he's a fun joy, dude. He's a good dude.
You guys had a blast on there, but I took some notes off of it where I could get them. And you did say one thing in there that kind of resonated. Strength coaches are treasure hunters, and you're always looking for that treasure. So the one thing about treasure hunters is they need a map to find the treasure. So
right,
building an athletic map to help you find the gold in an athlete. What does that look like to you?
I can't really visualize even what that map even looks like. What I'm saying is like, how do you get that kid to believe everything you're saying and do everything you want him to do and want to run to your class, literally run across the school? And that's how far my classroom is from everybody else. I mean, it's probably a 3-minute walk, no joke. So the kids literally have to run my class. I tell them, you got to run. Even the principal tells them, you got to run to Coach Lane's class. You're not going to get there on time unless you run. So how do I get that kid to want to run every day to my class with a smile and bring the best? I got to figure that out. And that's not easy. I'm not going to lie. Like, it could be exhausting to figure out every kid when you got 75 plus kids or more after school and build a relationship with those kids. It's a treasure to find the spot to hit every day to get them to want to give their best to themselves and give their best to their teammate, their training partner, and for the program, So I literally can't go into detail like what that mapping looks like. It's just like, how do I build this relationship with this young woman, this young man, with them for them to trust me? And it's kind of, it's literally something that's hard to explain. I'm trying to be myself every day, high energy guy. I give nicknames to kids, fun nicknames, I'm trying to, I kind of I joke with them a lot and stuff as well. But at the same time, I educate them hard. Like there's details, it's discipline, but I break everything down, and I feel like I do a good job. Some people give me many big, really good compliments about how well I can educate, and I hope I take that from my mom. But I feel like I'm really good at educating kids on, why you use your foot, or why we do a certain grip on the ball, or the angle of the ankle, or the knee, or the hip in that position, or even like cleans. Like I'm able to see why they're not able to get tall and they're clean or something. And I'm able to fix that, but I'm able to use it in terminology that they understand, or terminology that they need to understand that another student wouldn't understand it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm able to kind of simplify it for every kid differently a little bit sometimes. Like a basketball girls, basketball guys, an easy way to understand like a jump shrug is just your jump shot. Like you can't get up unless you push your feet to the ground. So simple things like that, excuse me, that allows me to build that type of relationship with my kids. And not gonna lie, like I'm a loud coach. I'm loud at teaching. I'm loud about educating. I'm loud about cheering people on. I'm loud about jumping your butt if you're just standing around talking, hanging out, and not training. But I'm also very loud about highlighting my kids uh, after class about what I saw, what was so great about this kid. What did he do today that I thought was awesome? And I highlight in front of everybody. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what that roadmap looks like, man. I just know every day it is a challenge to keep a strong relationship with your kids. And I think you got to be honest with them. You got to be blunt a little bit sometimes with them. And you just got to tell them you care. I tell them right all the time, like, hey, I love you. But if you don't love yourself, then my love don't mean nothing. Like I can't respect you if you can't respect yourself. So it's like everything I try to do comes back to accountability. And when I told Scott, the treasure hunter, man, I was like, dude, you just gotta, how are you gonna find, every day we're trying to find that little gem, that little thing, and every kid is how we're gonna get them to feel like our classroom is the best classroom to be part of. Our program is the best program to be part of. That's what I want my kids to go. I want them going away like, who's the best teacher? Coach Lane. Who's the best program? Coach Lane, strength conditioning coach. It's the strength conditioning program, the best class I ever had. I want my kids going away think that. You know what I'm saying? Because in my mind, that was my motivating when I was high school. That was my favorite class. I loved going over to my strength coach's house, training twice a week. Like that was what I loved. So hopefully I'm painting a good picture, a good memory, or giving them a good memory after they graduate from high school.
Do you find that kids truly do want to know why they're doing what they're doing? Like
Oh yeah.
maybe strength and conditioning class, they'll dig in a little further than history,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. And you can't fool them. I mean, you can for a while, but they have results right there, so they can compare the results to the words coming out of your mouth pretty quickly, and they'll figure out if you're a fraud.
100%. And it depends on your community, what type of kid you have. It's like that. My community is lower income community where sports is a big deal in the community. Hopefully, getting the opportunity to move on past high school and stuff like that. But for athletics, so sports is a big deal, and so my class is a big deal to my kids. But I think I have a handful of kids who are non-athletes in my class who've earned a spot in my class because they got a recommendation for the PE teacher because they did well. They did everything they had to do in the normal PE class they had to do. So, and they worked the butt off because they want to just lift weight. They care about six packs and biceps and triceps. Not cool. I'll help you out. I'll do all that stuff. But you're also going to learn how to clean. You're also going to learn how to deadlift. You know what I'm saying? You're going to do all the things that the athletes are doing. You're going to learn how to jump. You're going to change direction. You're going to have to sprint. You're going to do all these things the athletes are doing to be part of the program. But yeah, I find, to me, I have a varsity male class and a varsity female class that they have to earn. It's like AP English. Like you got to earn being the best of the best, as in not just being athletic talent, but like you've earned it through attendance and consistency and data. You know what I'm saying? Work ethic. You're a great teammate. You're doing all the right things that we want you to be a leader in our school. That's why you earn a spot in this class. Like those athletes like that, they want to be everything broken down, taught everything. Like, why are we doing these jumps? What's these jumps for? All this different stuff. And that's what, like, hopefully I'm doing a good job if I'm educating these kids and progressing them, understanding, like, hey, when you go off to college, and if that's your goal, I want you to go in and be the top freshman in the weight room because the weight room is probably one of the first places you're going to go. So I want you to stand out. And And I ain't gonna lie, like probably all my kids stand out when we go off to college. I mean, I can't tell you how many text messages, emails I get. This past weekend, it was the homecoming. So a lot of the guys that were on the state final team last year came back and they're off to college and they're like, Coach Lane, man, they are not doing, we're doing like 3 sets of 12 on power clean and like 3 sets of 12 on squats in season. I'm like, yeah, you should, yeah, that's not good. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that, things like that. So they're like, but they're always using us to do all the example for the lifts. I'm like, great, perfect, man. That's exactly what I want you to do. So yeah, I take pride in educating my kids for sure. And then, and I think they, like any class, they want to learn. It just depends how passionate the teacher is about it. You know what I'm saying? Like you said it, like they're going to read the BS pretty quickly if you know what you're talking about and you know what you want to do. And hopefully they know from me right away. Like I love strength conditioning sports performance, but I love winning. I understand how important training is to winning and being successful, and not just games and stuff, but also in winning life, being a teammate, colleague on your team and all that stuff. I mean, your work life later down the road, how important all that stuff kind of works together.
Do you find they allow us to make quite a few mistakes if we're honest about them? Like if I add something in and they're like, why are we doing this? And I'm like, okay, this is what I hope to see, but I cannot tell you this is what we're going to see, but we're going to try it to see if we get the benefit we want.
Yeah.
They're pretty forgiving. And then when the numbers don't work out, you're like, okay, that didn't work. Let's move on to something else. That they seem to be okay with that, as opposed to just saying it's just something I want to do and this is why we're doing it. They're not even really giving them an explanation why we're doing it. Do you find that?
Oh yeah, easy. I do that a lot where especially when I'm trying to mess with like I'm trying to play around with like EUR stuff, like essential utilization training stuff, and I'm trying to label my kids to plyometrics like that with my advanced kids now. And so I'll throw some stuff in jumps here or there for that to try to, it's just using the counter movement jump or the squat jump. But I try to play around with some stuff. But before I go into detail, sometimes I'll say, hey, I want to add this in. I'm trialing some stuff. Let's see what happens. See what the numbers are. And then they're cool with it. You know what I'm saying? And then, yeah, if I don't like something, I'll come back. Okay, I screwed up. My bad. Not getting the data I want to get. But I'm going to switch and try this one now. And then they're cool with it. Like, they want to be part of that, especially the upperclassmen. They want to be part of the trial and error and figuring things out. So they're always like telling me, hey, is this going to be the same program you think that we're going to do next year? I'm like, there's a staple roots, you know what I'm saying? The roots of the tree are there, but like, we're always going to be tinkering some things here or there, especially you guys and girls. You're the best of the best. I'm going to try some there and try some things, different stuff, So I think they like that. They want to know that like, hey, we're using them because they're the best ones. They can trial and error things correctly. They know that I'm trying to build the program, not just for this year, but for next year and the following year, that we're not trying to, oh, this is the program for the next 10 years. No, we're always changing things. We're always trying to, trim the tree, trim the bush a little bit so it can regrow somewhere else, So no, I don't have any negative for my kids at all. My kids love that stuff. Yeah. So
you talked about it there a little bit, that the upper level of athletics where you're at is kind of a way out from maybe their situation that they're in now. So assisting athletic development to the upper levels. I mean, you've had some kids that made it all the way to the pro level.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What do you see in those kids at the high school level that has you investing more into them to help them reach those goals?
Well, first of all, every professional athlete I've ever coached, every athlete I've coached who have become professionals are the smartest individuals I've come across as in a high school kid. Like they're all like 4.0 GPA academic kids. That's the first thing I tell them. Like I said, if you're not a high level academic person, you won't be a professional athlete. I truly believe that. Now I understand there's probably a very small percent in the NFL or NBA or whatever, and maybe not the brightest or the sharpest tools of sheds. We know that, but from my situation, I've got 3 NBA guys and I got 7 NFL guys, 1 track and field, 1 Olympic girl in swimming. So I'm not saying they're all 4.0 kids. So it's hard for me to say it's not 4.0. It's just like they have to be a higher academic. Now, that's the first thing I talk about all the time. And then the next thing I talk about is that not only do they have great genetics, but they take every class and every teacher very, very serious. Like they're very respectful to everybody, any administration. Like they truly care about the culture of the school. They're not selfish individuals. None of them have ever been selfish individuals. So that's what was great about all of them. So from that, the training thing was like the easiest thing to do with them because the weight room was so easy for them. You know what I'm saying? So I could trial and error some cool things with them in class to see what would work because they were always willing to do it because they were always exceeding everything we were doing in class. You know what I'm saying? So that was easy to have examples. I do give one example always to my kids, and it's Jared Dokes. He played for, he went to Cincinnati, played at Cincinnati running back, started for 3 years, played in the NFL for the Dolphins for 2 years and the Texans for 2 years. And so Dokes got in trouble. I made this rule was there was when phones kind of started getting kind of crazy. It was when I was at LC. And I was like, no phones are allowed in the weight room, no pictures, no video. If anything comes from phones and videos, it comes from my phone only. And so somehow they were in the weight room one day when I wasn't there after school and lifting, and he took some pictures of him flexing and he posted it, and I saw it. And I responded back on social media, congratulations, Dokes, you're the first person to ever have to do 1,000 air squats for doing social media stuff. And he was like, oh man, you know. So the next day in class, he did 1,000 air squats in 90 minutes. He when he got done, man, I mean, it was full range of motion. He was popping them out. He was absolutely looked like he just come out of the pool. He was that so there was a huge ring of sweat around where he was or whatever. And I didn't count the reps. I knew he did 1,000. He was that type of person. Like he counted, he was honest. Of course, I screwed up. My bad. I won't happen again. Okay, do your 1,000. See it. The whole 90 minutes class, he repped them out. He got done. I'm not lying, man. He looked like he walked out of the pool with his clothes on. He was so drenched. So I tell that story all to my kids all the time. I was like, hey, the first person to ever do 1,000 air squats was Jared Dokes. He played in the NFL. And the reason why that's so important is because he made it that level because that's the type of person he was. He made a mistake. He manned up. He never made excuses about it. And he did every rep. And he did the rep he was supposed to do, full range of motion. And he was absolutely soaked in sweat. So that's why I challenged my kids. Say, hey, I'm just telling you right now, like, if you did 1,000 air squats, then they got like if they knew no dress or they skipped my class, they got 1,000 squats. You know, they're gonna learn. And I was telling them, like, dude, a professional athlete, one of the best I ever had, did 1,000 squats, and he did it because that was the type of person he was. He manned up, he did every rep, he was gonna give his best effort, he wasn't gonna BS it. And you got the end result was he was just absolutely soaked in sweat. Like I blew my mind. So that's why I tell you, kids, like the NFL athletes or professional athletes just have a different mindset, man. They're so much more mature at a younger age. Like I remember Michael Tutsi. He just got cut from the Colts this year, this past spring, but he was so mature as a freshman. Just as in like him walking the halls, talking to teachers, the respect he had for teachers. You can just tell, man, this dude's like a senior right now. Like he just had it. And you can just see that special spark in those kids at such a young age. You know, like, oh man, this could be one. So I got another kid who just plays for University of Miami right now. And he's probably gonna be another NFL guy here in a year or two, the wide receiver, and he's the same way. He's the first kid I had at DC that I was like at Decatur, my current school. I was like, oh man, he's got something. But his older brother plays for the Jets, right? Or his older brother plays for the Giants right now. So yeah, they all have something different. But I feel like the academic side, the maturity, just from like respect to the teachers, other students, everybody, they don't do anything wrong. They're always doing the things that they need to do to keep progressing themselves in the right direction, you know?
I have a very high level female athlete and a very high level male athlete that worked out here, and now they're off at college and doing their thing. Yes, and to what you're saying there, the dream pushes them, and they don't veer side to side. I don't know, that whatever their goal or dream is seems to be a magnet, and it pulls them directly in that direction.
Great analogy. Yeah. So it seems like there's nothing that like they don't go to. There's just like none of those kids were party kids. I never heard like they're at a party. They're never doing anything that was taking them away from their path. And I don't know what that is. You're right. I don't. Right, that magnet's a great analogy. Like it just like they could never get off the path. It just kept pulling that way. So,
and the conversations you have with those athletes seem to be at such a different level than some of them. When they sit down to talk to you, there's a lot of substance in what they're saying and what they're going through. And I found with them, a lot of times you just got to keep them right mentally because they'll take care of the rest. But the stress of what they're trying to do sometimes will weigh really heavy on them.
You know, what I found also with those is they will come to you. Then all of a sudden when they're stressed mentally a little bit, they will come to you. I got a guy down that's MJ Campbell. He's at Louisville right now. He's a freshman. He would just come to me like once a week during my prep just to talk to me about stuff, and I never asked him to come down because I didn't need to, because I knew like if he needed something, he was mature enough to go get help. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I've noticed on those kids is like they would always find me if they wanted to talk about something. And you're right that you could go to some deep conversations with them, and they always somehow found the root themselves. When other kids, you kind of had to help find it for them, what the problem was. You know what I'm saying? They could always find it, but they would definitely deep dive a little bit deeper in conversation with you. You're right. Good point.
One, nobody prepares you for this, I don't think. I haven't had, the educations, so maybe they do. But getting thrust into this and working with a high-level athlete, there was days that he might come in and we'd kind of abandon training because that's not what he needed.
Yeah.
Yes, he has a goal and he needs to get there, but the training's not what he needs right now. He needs something totally different. Now, I'm in a totally different environment than you. I'm private and we can do that. But yeah, there were days that I wasn't prepared for, that we just had to find something totally away from the weight room to do to keep him mentally right to achieve his goals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. That from the private sector, yeah, you can definitely have that. That big drastic piece if you had to change the program immediately. Yeah. For me, in the team standpoint, it's a little bit tougher, especially when someone's a leader. You can't just let them go off schedule too much from the training program. I can always make modifications, which I do a lot for some of my guys, of course. You got to. Especially when it comes to like any mental stuff, it's like whatever they got to do. Like there's some issues going on. Like some of my kids have issues going home to home. And, that's the thing like that I struggle with is those conversations sometimes, because I never had that problem growing up. My parents were amazing 2-parent home, and I had 2 grandparents on both sides are loving and my aunts and uncles. So some of my kids had those issues. Those are the issues I struggle with, yeah, sometimes. But to go back what we were originally talking about, it's like, yeah, you got to make those modifications in the weight room. But when it comes to those athletes being leaders in the weight room, they still got to be there. They still got to be in there, giving the juice, giving the leadership, training hard, still lead by example for our younger athletes who are in there. But yes, I think it is smart when when one of those athletes come up and say, "Hey, coach, this is bothering me. Hey, man, just take a couple of things here, things off, try this, do this, whatever." In between sets, this will get them away from, if they don't want to train something that day, they just don't feel like it. I can always make modifications of certain things, and I think that's an easy thing to do for me. So,
and I might be totally wrong. I'm comparing it probably a little bit too much to animals in some situations, but in a situation like you're in, those kids will hide it really well. It's kind of like finding a sick calf. You got to know what sick looks like to pick him out of the herd, because he's not going to tell you or show you. So I would imagine some of your interactions are a little different than some of them I've experienced.
Well, I think you're in a great situation. How you have smaller groups, I think you can eyeball stuff pretty quickly. What I do for me is what I did something different was this like past when I took this new job, I was like, man, I got to change some things up. When I was doing LC, I felt like I wasn't getting the results I was wanting. And I felt like I've always been good in a relationship with my kids, but I felt like I needed to do more. And just a simple thing was I stood outside the weight room, and every day the kids come in, I fist bump them. I fist bump every kid so I can see their body language before they walk in. So I try to identify, hey, do I need to have a conversation with somebody? Do I need to keep an eye on somebody, et cetera, just to make sure that kid's having an okay day. You know what I'm saying? I'll have kids like will cry to me about because they couldn't bring their clothes to school. Their mom didn't do laundry, or they didn't do laundry. They don't have any more clothes to bring to school for a class. And they'll cry to me about that. Hey, man, all you gotta do is communicate. Tell me that. It's cool. No big deal. I get it, man. Okay. But I'll identify that hopefully before they walk in. Hey, I didn't have a conversation with them. I have a conversation. I'm going to keep an eye on that person. That to me has been a game changer on keeping my culture very positive in the classroom, and stepping outside the classroom and seeing each one of them, making that direct contact with them, trying to get eye to eye with them before we get after it, and that's been a big deal for me. Like I said, keeping our culture positive in the classroom every day.
You hit on something there, and I didn't have any notes on it, but I do now. So I just finished Pete Carroll's book, and it was very good. But he talked about that. Teams that have physical touch seem to excel far better than teams that don't. So by standing out there and fist bump them, look them in the eye,
Yeah.
evaluating where they are as they walk in the door, I would think has to make for a better classroom, because now you have seen them all individually, at least for 1 second, to quickly evaluate and see what needs to be done. So I had never really thought about that. I delved into that book. It had a lot of great stuff in there, and that was one of them. I don't know if that's just something you instituted or if it's something you read or somebody directed you to.
No, I just instituted it, man. I didn't read anything. I was just evaluating myself. It was during COVID. I applied for this job. I was looking at the previous school I was at. LC was part of a 2 high school township, and I love where I was at. I had great kids and stuff. But when you're in a 2 high school township, at least in the Indianapolis area, like, everybody wants to be sisters, like sister schools. It's got to be same the same. And I'm like, dude, I ain't trying to be the same to anybody. I'm trying to stand above the rest. I'm trying to take my program to a whole nother level. I don't want you to hold me back. And they was holding me back. Like, well, you can only get this. And if they get this, all this crap. And I was like, I got to find somewhere else to go. So Decatur was open. There were only 1 high school township. So I knew everything I wanted to do sports performance, I could get. I could make it happen. Right. So that's the big reason I came down here. But I absolutely love it. But yeah, I think like, another thing I do with my kids is I didn't doing the evaluation in COVID. I was just like, man, what can I do to get better energy in my kids every class? How can I identify any issues so we don't have any issues in the class? How can I better do that? And I just came out, man, maybe I just need to get out of the classroom, get eye to eye with them before they walk in every day. And I just kind of started doing that and fist bumping them, whatever. And again, like, I'm out there clapping the hallway and doing the Ronnie Coleman, big weight, let's go. Just being a kind of a clown so they can make fun of me and just feel like Coach Lane's not all tough all the time, you know what I'm saying? But another thing I do highlight my kids, like at the end of a class period, I always put my arm around them. Like, I'm like, blah, 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 and I just go into detail. And I feel like that's another thing. Like, they know I love them, I care about them, that I care that they're giving the best effort of themselves, and that's the most important thing. They're going to get stronger, but they're building confidence in themselves, and they love our class and they enjoy our class. They enjoy me. Our other assistant coaches in there. Like, that's the biggest thing. And so, yeah, I've never been really a touch type of guy, even like hugs and stuff. That's not really my thing. But I felt like, hey, you know what? I got to get out of my comfort zone to get them out of their comfort zone so we can all work together in peace, right? In the weight room, in the classroom. So I just kind of came up with that. Like, I'm going to come out, give them high fives, give them fist bumps. I actually started going fist bump because I was like, man, adolescent kids their hands are dirty. They're touching all kinds of stuff. So I'm gonna stay with the bump side, not palm side. So that's why I started doing that.
I heard you talk a little bit about belt squats and things like that on the Caffeinate Coaches podcast, which got me thinking, accessories for athletes who can't get the volume they need to progress from the bar, whether they're extremely weak, they're not coordinated, whatever the case may be. How do you make sure that the athlete's getting the proper amount of volume when maybe the bar isn't the direct path at the moment?
Here's the thing. I don't want to say I prescribe a volume, but I always like to trust, especially my upperclassmen. I trust them on like how they feel. I always try to, hey man, I'm gonna prescribe 3 to 5 here. You go off how you feel. And obviously in the reason BBT, that kind of gives them better feedback of what they can do. So I always give my kids like a rep range. And then I'll say, hey, I'll give you a +2. Now, I don't do a lot of +2s in season. I kind of just keep the range and let them go off field. But the belt squat for me, I had 2 of them at LC, and I used them both a lot in season. Excuse me, from O-line, D-line, especially some of my bigger offensive lineman guys. They just were uncomfortable on the bar in season, and their knees were bothering them. So again, we understand front squats and back squats, and there's a lot of knee flexion, knee over the toe with that movement. So I started going to belt squats, more of a hip dominant move for him, and keeping that knee, slightly behind the big toe or maybe parallel, even line with that. And they were just feeling stronger. We were putting more weight on. Their knees weren't beating them up, and their back wasn't bothering them. So with that, So to me, that was like, hey man, if you feel comfortable under a belt squat, we're not directly loading the spine from the top, and you feel more comfortable that way, we're still able to move the way we want to move it, and your knees feel healthier, we're still winning. We're still moving weight. We're still moving it fast. So I felt like from my standpoint, like that was a great tool for those type of kids. And even I don't have any belt squats right now, my kids, but My basketball guys actually love just doing Bulgarian dumbbell split squats in season. You know what I'm saying? And they feel stronger that way. And if I can load up my guys and they can grab 80s or 90s and do a couple doubles or triples with that and be 6'4" and do that, hey, I'm cool with that with them. They're getting stronger that way. So I just think like belt squats just another one of those tools where there's a time and place for it. And especially you've got to think upper body injuries as well. Like if you're not finding tools that are going to keep your athletes training and keep them healthy throughout the season, I think you're missing out, So I'm not against any other avenue, but I think belt squat is one of those tools that like a lot of people probably don't utilize enough, especially in season with kids.
We hit a ton of rabbit holes, so I want to get back on some questions that I shouldn't have put
Yeah.
at I shouldn't have put at the end. I should have put at the beginning, but we're here now. So, in an effort not to keep you all day, I'll start getting to those. But I know you worked with Kevin Vanderbush, so
Yeah.
that has influenced the way you coach some, I'm sure. I mean, it's hard to work with a legend and not be influenced. But in doing that, ollie lifts are kind of a staple in your program. Did you take that from him, or was that always something that you looked at as good for athletic development?
I wouldn't say I took it from him. I always, from the research, I always saw this the feedback so much power output, a force rate development from it, even though there's so much more research now showing that trap bar shows higher numbers, et cetera. But my standpoint was I see all these college programs doing it. And I wasn't trying to, I want to be like college pro. So I'm like, well, from the educational side, I was like, man, like I need to teach these. If my kid wants to be a college athlete and this school's teaching cleans and power cleans, I need to teach this kid that. If not, he's going to be way behind schedule going off to college. It's easy for me to say, yeah, I'm tracking these peak power numbers, et cetera, and these speeds for these things for power clean, et cetera, or speed bench. And those are all relative numbers for my program. So I'm okay with that. But if I looked at the educational side, I was like, man, I'm getting a result from performance, but I also look at like, man, I need to set these kids up for success if the next step is for them to go college. If they want to go college, they're going to be doing these exercises there. I know everybody has their point of views of what should be Olympic lifts or trap bars and all that stuff. And I feel like to me, from an educational standpoint, again, like teaching a technical thing like cleans or hang cleans, hang power, any of them, it don't matter. I think it has true value for your kids because it takes discipline. You know what I'm saying? It takes time to be consistent to keep seeing the progress of those lifts. I think teaching a squat, in my perspective, is easier. But why can't you challenge your kids for something more challenging and explain to them this is not an overnight success. This is going to take time. You're going to have to really focus on the details of this. And if you do it, you're going to get a great outcome of that. And then you're going to be able to continue using this exercise later in life if you want a training program, especially go to college. I'll go back to what we talked about earlier with my boy at Louisville, MJ Campbell. They used him to teach the power clean and clean to all the freshmen for the examples. So I take pride in that. Like he went there knowing how to do that stuff correctly. They have elite form. He knew how to use elite form. So they bumped him within the first couple of days to working with the higher level D lineman guys just because of his progress in the weight room. He knew what he was doing. He knew all the movements. He was doing just technique better than them. So that's why I take pride in. Like, yeah, Olympic lifts have a great output, right? Great result from that. But like, I'm teaching them because it is a high level movement. So it takes more challenging focus, detail, and I also see great teamwork from my kids. I mean, kids are coaching kids. You know what I'm saying? I can't coach every kid every day. I can't see them all. Right? Like I see them, but like I can't coach every kid every day. So you got to hold your other kids accountable of being a great teamwork. That's something we talked about. I think you made on the sheet we're talking about is teammates or friends versus partners and training partners. I'm teaching my kids to be teamwork and training partners, not friends. So you got to coach your kids. You have to give them the details of, hey man, like you got to encourage, you got to push your kids. You got to watch the technique, give them cues, stuff like that. Encourage, do all this different stuff, and just be friends. Friends just let people just do what they got to do, right? But teammates hold each other accountable. So that's what I love about the Olympic lifts too, from the educational side, is that we're getting teamwork built in there with training partners. And we're working the technical side where they really have to focus on something challenging and take time to build and get good at it. At the same time, then if they want to go up to college, then they'll be able to know how to do that lift. And the last thing really did not get the outcome I want, which is the power output on stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that's, and all my data is relative to what I do. So I don't try to compare it to anybody else, but I view Olympic lifts a little bit different than some other people too as well. So that's why I love Olympic lifts though.
My background in Olympic lifts is not big. I have started thinking about it in terms that you spoke of there is I'm sending kids off to play at a higher level, and we don't have much in the way of technique because we don't do it here. Now the high school does, and I've always just let the high school handle that. But
Yeah.
obviously you want to send your athletes on to the higher level as prepared as possible. So that's where some of these questions coming up are going to come from, is because my lack of knowledge on it. But building a clean, to me, it seems like the clean can't build itself. So what aspects are you looking at to help develop that lift?
So first thing this is something me and Bogle actually has talked about the past couple of years is what I found like the staple of developing the clean, and this is, everybody has their opinion on this is my opinion, is the clean deadlift. Like I find out my kids are not patient on a clean deadlift, but keeping the bar tight to their body, getting into that athletic position one, which is mid thigh, before they go up into their triple extension or clean pull. And what's happening, I see a lot of my kids, they'll get to right above the knee, which is athletic position 2, and then they'll try to triple extend. And then what happens then is they'll have to jump forward and swing the bar and try to pull themselves under the bar going forward. You know what I'm saying? So one thing I've added more and more in my training, which I do clean complexes as a warm up, is we do clean deadlift, clean pulls, and then we do cleans. So, and actually I've taken a lot of my in-season training and we do more of clean pulls. So if I say, hey, we're going to do 3 cleans today, they know the first 2 reps are always clean pulls, 2 clean pulls and 1 catch. That's all we're doing. Because the clean pull is the most important part there, right? Same thing if I was doing the hang power slings or hang clean, it's the jump shrug part. That's the triple extension, getting tall. That's the most important part. So they're going to train that aspect, because if they can't drive force in the ground, we talked about earlier, their feet, they can't get tall in the mirror and get the long neck to short neck, they're not going to be able to pull themselves on the bar anyway, so they can get the bar high enough. So that's, to me, it's clean deadlift is the number one thing when you're teaching a clean. You got to teach them the clean deadlift. You got to teach them how to engage their lats, keep it tight to their body. I think if you can do that, because they always want to rush it. So it's like, stay patient. Because when I use cleans for power clean, we're tracking peak velocity. Well, the peak velocity doesn't happen until you get to AP1 anyways, right? So I'm not even tracking from floor all the way to AP1 anyways. So we're tracking where that peak happens. So to me, I'm like, just be patient. Drive feet in the ground, hips and shoulders rise together, get there, and then unleash once you get to AP1. So that's a big thing in my program right now. The past couple of years, big clean deadlifts.
And there is a lot to build on with that. It seems like the better my guys get with deadlifting, and then throw a dynamic day in there, they're pulling so fast that weight is getting up to mid thigh. Like, they'll talk about how the clean just feels natural at that point, because they've already put enough power in through the dynamic effort to get it high enough that they feel like they could just go right under the bar.
100%. Yeah.
So moving into the clean a little further, looking for weak spots in the clean and kind of shoring them up. So with what you're saying there, you're maybe looking at deadlift technique first up to that thigh, or what are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking at deadlift technique. Like, I like conventional deadlift because I wanted to transfer over to cleans for our kids. But also I want them to learn how to pick up a bar off the ground, hinge dominant, not trap bar. No, I'm not saying I don't do trap bar stuff. I'm just saying that's why I feel like I start my kids strongly with deadlift first. And we all know deadlift setup is a little bit different than clean setup. The hips are a little bit lower, but they're not drastic. And the bar alignment may be a little bit different. So, shoulders are above the bar on clean. Shoulders are slightly in front of the bar on a normal deadlift. So it's just minor adjustments, so I don't over teach that. I'm just saying that right now. But I found like my kids are, most of the time, if we have a weakness, a lot of it's the ankle issue. They can't get their hips down. The ankles are the biggest issue. I don't see a lot of drastic hip issues for some people. It's mostly ankles. So we do a lot of ankle mobility work with our kids, stuff like that. But if I can get them down to where we're getting shoulders above the bar, like to set up for a clean, then I know our deadlifts are solid. You know what I'm saying? It's just that bending part, right? So if I do have a mobility issue, very simple. We add blocks, raise blocks up there. That'll kind of sit them down. They'll get the where they can get the lock the lats in, get the shoulder above the bar again, and there's no issue there. So that's where I try to work more of the ankle mobility work, kind of the superset exercise in between sets when they're doing blocks and stuff. And then we slowly take blocks off as we're progressing through the weaknesses on that. But that's the only big issue I see with my kids. It's always their ankles, especially young athletes. It's not like a hamstring issue or a hip shift. Sometimes you have sometimes with that as well, but it's mostly the ankles, the big issue with a lot of young athletes.
And the ankles will show up everywhere. They'll show
Yeah.
up. They'll show up in the jumps. They'll show up in the sprints. They'll show up in the ISO work. That'll always be the limiting factor. It seems like in athlete development.
Yes.
You'd mentioned you talked to Adam Vogel a lot about it, and me and Adam have talked quite a bit too. Now, I believe, I don't want to speak for him, but I believe he teaches the snatch first. Is that
Yes, I
something?
believe so. Yeah. I think he started doing that recently. Again, maybe the past couple of years, he started teaching that more, I think more first. So
Does that fall into something similar to what you would do, or do you teach the clean and then move to the snatch?
I teach the clean. I teach the clean first. I'm not against the student teaching the snatch. I do hang power snatches for my kids. I don't ever do snatches for them. I don't ever do full catch snatches and stuff. I just do more for power output stuff. From research from Will Fleming stuff, and I'm a big Will Fleming fan. Muscle power snatches are the most peak power outage exercise. So I like to do things like that are going to get the most power output from them. So hang power snatches, that's what I'm chasing for that. Like I'm chasing competition for that number for my kids, moving ball fast. I'm not trying to get super strong on the snatch. That's just me personally. I'd rather just, if I can get strong on cleans and consistent on power cleans and even jerks, I'm cool with that. That's fine. Snatches to me, I love snatches. I just think there's more of a higher risk sometimes, and there's more teaching to that. And I'm not against the high teaching. Like I teach a crap out of the cleans and stuff, but I feel like snatches, I have more teams that don't really need snatches. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, baseball and any throwing athlete off season probably really good for external rotation. I get that too as well. But I can do that with a dumbbell snatch, and I feel like I can get bang for the buck for that, or kettlebell snatches, stuff like that, instead of doing true bar snatches with my kids. I do like, though, part of our warm up, we do overhead squats just for range of motion, shoulder stability, upper back stability, things like that. I just don't progress to doing full power snatches or just snatches in general.
Now, looking through your program, you'd sent me some stuff, and I was briefing for this and kind of writing some questions out. But looking at your program overall, you rotate the dynamic effort and the max effort weeks. To me, it kind of almost resembled a tier a little bit. I might be off on how I was seeing that, but that's just how I saw it when I looked at it. Do you find that helps your athletes better than maybe doing both of them in the same cycle?
Yeah, I think it's the recovery thing. For me, I see my kids get more consistent, higher average velocities on the max day. When they get I think they get like 11 days separated from the max effort to the dynamic days. Again, we're on a block schedule, so I see them every other day. So I see my guys in the girls like getting faster max effort days, faster velocities, because they're getting a little bit longer recovery time. What I've seen in the past when I've done just a straight strength cycle of 4 weeks in a row, I felt like during that third week where you're supposed to be doing a recovery, it almost like where like you need to, I had to drop the percentages even more than what I normally would on recovery. Like they're really gassed. And I didn't really see a lot of big performance in that fourth week of the cycle. So the jump that I would like to see, right? So then when I switched to doing something like this, where I was doing concurrent, is I felt like a consistent 9 to 11 day rest period from max effort to the next max effort rotation. I saw bigger speeds from the weights the weight increments that I was prescribing. So I wouldn't be off that much at all. I was only adding a 3 to 5% jump from rotation to rotation, but I was the kids are very consistent on the speeds. And I saw, even though with those jumps, and those are small jumps, they were staying around the same speed. And that's what I wanted them from, you know. So I was seeing their average peak power go, their average power go up, average mean power. So that was big for me. So when I went to the dynamic days, I was seeing the same thing where I was making small jumps, or we would stay the same weight. We'd do we just do a complex set, but like that rotation, we're doing the same weight for all three rotations on dynamic effort. We just had to try to stay consistent with the speed or push the speed. And that's what I was seeing. I was seeing the speed going up, the power output going up. I was like, well, hell, that's the goal I wanted to get. We're seeing the power go up and the speed's going up. We're getting faster on that. So why would I keep trying to add more weight to lower the speed? I'm getting the outcome I want. So if I needed to add weight from my upperclassmen guys, then I would do that. But I wanted them to understand every time we were training, we were always training the velocity, the speed number, not the weight number. The weight was just the tool we're using to track the other tool with our speed. So that was where I was seeing the big difference was the recovery time. I felt like from going max effort to dynamic effort, I was seeing bigger jumps in that cycle. So for me, that's what was the game changer. Like I was like, man, the guys were gassing on that 4-week cycle doing strength. I wasn't getting a big enough jump with it, and I wasn't seeing the speeds I wanted. Like some of them were still gassed, and when I started doing this, it was like, oh man, they even have more energy. Like they're happy when it comes in a dynamic effort day, you know, so they don't feel beat up. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's the right thing to do. So it's working out so far, and I'm seeing good results. The kids like it, so I'm gonna keep pushing. So pushing it forward if we can.
So maybe tier wasn't the best way to label it. Kind of listening to you talk about it, it's almost like a micro bonder chuck.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So the freshman kids, and you brought that up in that text messages, it's more like the complex method with the beginners. Like they stay the same weight. Like I say beginners, sorry. So when our freshmen start second semester, after they've hit their certain standards they need to hit, whatever that standard was set for them. So like, you know, a freshman boy football player, and he front squatted, you know, 1.2, 1.3% of his body weight, right? Okay, so he's gonna keep front squatting till he gets to 1.5, and then I'll move him to back squat. But right now he's still front squatting, but he's over his body weight, 1.2. So I'm gonna start adding some dynamic stuff in there for him. So if I label his front squat at 55%, 50%, and I want to do 50%, we're going to do 7 sets of 2 on speed squats. Then what I wanted to do on that is that I wanted to do that same 50% all 3 rotations. So I want him to hit 1.0. He's got to hit 1.0. That's the speed we're trying to look for. So if he can't hit 1.0, then we'll drop the weight. But the goal is 1.0. The goal is not 50%. Does that make sense? So that's why I try to keep the same weight on the exercise for all 3 cycles. And then if he keeps hitting that all 3, then we'll bump his weight for the next round, next cycle. For the upperclassmen, I do make some adjustments for them. So I will make a weight increasement for them because they're going to be pretty consistent or always hitting their 1.0. But again, I use a weight adjustment chart as well. So they know if there is a fatigue standpoint, they have to make their adjustment, be adding weight or lowering weight, whatever it is, to stay at that 1.0.
Through the conversations we've had and through this, I mean, you definitely pull from a lot of different sources. So it's awesome to listen to you talk about different aspects of it. You know, I mean, there's a little bit of a DB hammer in there, you know, where you don't worry about the speed until they reach a base strength.
Yeah.
You got a little bit of Bonder Chuck in there. You have some Brian Mann and a little bit of concurrent. So it's coming from everywhere. And I think that's sometimes the way you got to be. Sometimes you get to drink in your own sauce too much and you shut yourself off to some of these other ideas.
I mean, I think it's probably the reason why you and me are friends with Adam Vogel is because like once I met, I mean, I know tons of coaches and I'm cool. I could name drop coaches I met along the way right here of like how much I'm inspired by them. But like, if I had to say there was one coach I've met in our association that like challenges me, that I like crave to talk to all the time, because he like just hearing what he's doing and what he's reading. And I'm like, maybe, I mean, I need to read that. What is that? Why am I not doing that? Whatever. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm going to incorporate in my program, but he challenges me, and I can't get enough talking to Vogel, man. We talk, I mean, this past year, we went to Sportsmith together. That was a great weekend. Then we went down to, obviously, NatCom. You were down there with us as well, and that was a great weekend. So, yeah, whenever I get time to talk to him, it's always, man, that's probably like an hour and a half conversation for sure, man. We're just going down random rabbit holes, which I'm sure you're in the same boat with him.
Yeah, we'll get up into that 3 hour mark. What I appreciate about him and coaches like you is the willingness to debate. We can talk about this stuff. We can punch holes in each other's theories. We can do all that. It's not mean or
Oh,
there's nothing bad about it, but you can walk away and say, okay, there was some merit in what you were saying. There was some merit in what I was saying. How do we merge this together to make the best athlete possible?
yeah. Well, when I was talking, me and Bobo were talking last year. We were talking about I was telling him about the clean deadlift thing I was doing, and then he was telling me about he was doing only 3 sets of squat. He was doing first set quarter squat, second set 90-degree, third set 4 range of motion. I was like, oh man, I like that, man. Like, are you seeing some good progress from the kids? He's like third set, it's like they're killing it. Like 4 range of motion, they're killing. It's like pre-warming up before they get to that weight. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't think about that. So I started incorporating that with my varsity guys in the season now on their squats. And they love it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and again, I'm seeing the great results from the third set, which that's usually the top end set, or what we call the performance set. That's the set I usually track. And you're right. I'm not hearing as much like, oh, my knees here or that, ankle this or whatever. So it gives them that time to kind of build up that last set. And I thought that was a great idea. So we always kind of have little things here or there. We're trying to pass back and forth on how we can get better at our program. So that's what I'm saying is like, there's always good coaches out there, which is really good in our association, that there's a lot of coaches who are very open-minded and they just want to learn and hear ideas and see if that's something that has true value to incorporate into their program,
Getting to know the coaches in the association and add them to the podcast has been just amazing, because you can always find an area of training that maybe I don't know much about, so I can go seek out a coach that has way more experience. We can do a podcast like this. I'm not an ollie lift guy. I can sit down, have a conversation with you, see where you're coming from. Why should I implement it? Why should I leave it alone? Well, after this conversation, I know a little bit more on the direction I might need to head.
Yeah. Well, when you bring up Olympic lifts, that something I do a little bit different is they teach the catches, power catches is 4-inch catch, 2 or 4-inch catch, 6-inch catch, an 8-inch catch. But I teach where like we do a lot of 6-inch catches, which is hips slightly above the knee. And the reason why I do catches there is because realistically, that's where athletes change direction at. They decelerate and reaccelerate, usually with the knee slightly above the knee or the hips slightly above the knee. So we do a lot of catches at 6. Not that we don't do catches at 8, but like, especially in season, like, hey, we're doing cleans, but we're doing 6-inch catches. I want them to stick it, meet the bar at 6-inch. So that's something a little bit different than we do than compared to other people who do Olympic lifts. Like Mark Garrett at Crown Point, dude, he's like, Vader was the godfather of strength conditioning. Mark Garrett's the godfather of the high school strength conditioning when it comes to Olympic lifts. Like that dude is the OG of like Olympic lifts. I don't think he knows American names. He only knows like Eastern Europe names. You know what I'm saying? So, I've learned a ton from him and Marty Mills at Center Grove. Obviously, Will Fleming is kind of where I got into it in my early years. But yeah, I think they definitely have a huge base. But like, I just take Olympic lifts and what I've learned, and then try to like transfer that to my program and just making adjustments of like what works for me, what I see it, how it needs to be implemented for my program, and how it relates to transfer to training to the field of competition. So.
Well, before I wrap up and let you off here, you did say something there that takes me further back into the podcast. So that 6-inch catch.
Yes.
That seems to me like what we were talking about earlier is where the kids stick on the box squat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you would build that up in the box squat, would that carry over to your clean?
100%. Because they know what that position is. They know that if you can build it up in the box squat, like you said, then they're comfortable by getting to that 6 quicker and faster and learning to engage and stick that position. A lot of kids will get to 6 and they'll leak, right? They'll leak to 8. Well, I don't want them to leak to 8. I want them to stick and react and reaccelerate up. You know what I'm saying? That's what we want them to do in the field of competition. We don't want that leakage, and that leakage can lead to an injury. So we want them to get to 6 and immediately reaccelerate that transfer of force. So concentrically, and you know that. So yeah, 100%. That makes sense. Yeah.
And maybe that's some of the reason why I've never went to the clean too much, because of what you're talking about there. So I think in terms of leakage, and you watch a lot of athletes clean, and they're leaking. Like you said, they go from a 6 to an 8. Well, now we went backwards from where I thought we should have been.
Yeah.
So from how you're explaining it, I think we're more closer to how we would want it to look. Same with the jumps, whether they be altitude jumps or box jumps or whatever. When they hit the catch, let's say from the jump, I don't want to see a huge leak or you defeated the whole purpose.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah, you're right. They've got to learn to absorb that force immediately and transfer that. You know what I'm saying? We make it vertical, horizontal, whatever it is. But that's what I find too. Is like, I don't want that stick and absorb, even though you are absorbing to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? I want that stick and reaccelerate, transfer that force, and essentially comes in quickly. And I don't know all the details. I haven't researched it enough yet, but I think that has a little bit to do with impulse ratios that they kind of look at with force plates as well. And me and Vogel talked about that this summer too on the way to sports plate, that we think that might be the next direction with VBT tracking impulse ratios. So, and I think that pertains a little bit also with some EUR stuff as well that we talked about earlier. So that'll be interesting, kind of what that direction goes as well. But I think that has something to do with it, you know.
I think of everything in terms of horses, and that's really weird, I know. But when you start out with a horse, so that would be a colt, let's say, and that'd be somewhat similar to your freshman class. You don't ask for a lot of that absorption. You just see where the leaks are.
Yeah.
And then as you refine and move into the bridle horse, everything's straight, everything's no leaks, no anything. And I think that is how I view athletes. So sometimes I wonder when I'm talking to a coach if what I'm saying even makes sense. But yes, I want, when you got to turn and you got to cut, you have to be aligned as straight as possible. And you have to absorb the forces you're putting in the ground so that you can redirect them. So anywhere there's a leak is where you're going to be either injury prone or slow.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Well, you're slow. I always say, you're slow. You're not going to be able to reaccelerate out quickly enough to make that change direction or get that separation that you're trying to look for from the opponent or the object or whatever it is. So,
well, Coach, I know I probably kept you longer than you wanted to, but this was really a great podcast.
This is fun, man. Yeah, this is really fun. This is really fun. I appreciate you inviting me on, man, and I would love to do it again. Hell, let's do you, me, and Vogel style, man. I'll do that too as well. That'll be fun.
There's nothing I would enjoy more than being the dumbest person in that room.
Trust me, I'll be right there at the same level. Trust me.
Well, I know it took a little while to get this scheduled, but I'm glad we did it. And thank you very much for your time.
No, I appreciate it, Stephen. Yeah, thank you. Anytime, man. And I think you do a great job. This podcast, you've got outstanding speakers on here, man. And I appreciate everything you do for our profession. This means a lot because, again, I love podcasts. I drive to school. It takes me an hour there, an hour at home. So I listen to podcasts all the time. So I never knew about your podcast till Vogel's, but ever since then, I listen to all of them, man. So keep up the great work. I appreciate your investment into our profession, man.
Well, thank you very much. And you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. See you, Stephen.